Okay, so what are we looking at today? We're looking at a new effort estimation method for agile projects, Scrum agile projects, to estimate stories and backlogs. So of course, you know, first question, our first thought that pops in our mind is why a new one? You know, don't we have poker planning or you know, wall sessions? How come we're not using those? So it all started back in 2005 when I got started with Agile in 2005, and pretty soon after that I looked into points estimation, and I looked also into the promise of point estimation. And the promise of point estimation is that it's going to be not confusing, has nothing to do with hours, so it's supposed to be super fast, and it also it takes away the need for re-estimation or things like that. And of course, the first thing you know, if you started using poker planning or anything like that, is that it is very confusing. The first thing that people do in a point estimation, as soon as you talk about point estimation, they're like, so what does a points worth? You know, is it worth one man day? You know, if you look at big methods like SAFE, you know, they say that the point is a man day. You know, one man day, 1 point. So there is a link between the two for most of those methods. So I had a dream to create a method that would actually deliver on the actual promise of point estimation. So I created CrumbScale, and so I'm going to show you CrumbScale real fast, and then I'm going to go over a few of the points that I just talked about, so that we can see how CrumbScale solved it. And as I'm explaining it, you'll see that, you know, it kind of self-explanatory. Okay, so first of all, CrumbScale, it's only 2 steps. Okay, it's very, very simple. It's deceivingly simple, actually. You don't really have the knowledge at one point that you're actually estimating in point. In fact, I call it point distribution, because it's not really estimation. It's a different way of doing it, and it's why is it so different is that I wanted it to make sure that we were not going to let our brain get in the way of doing a good point distribution of the effort across the stories. And we are extremely bad at controlling our biases when we're trying to estimate things or guess or making all kind of decision making like that. So I'm not going to go into the detail of how that worked. You know, it's I just explained that in my book. Okay, so we're going to go over the 2 steps, and then we'll see that. So normally this is done in a spreadsheet, you know, like Excel or, you know, Google Calc or anything like that. And why a spreadsheet is that it goes really, really fast when you estimate with CrumbScale. Like a very junior team can expect to estimate 20 to 30 stories per hour, while a senior expert team, and I've had a few, can estimate 80 to 100 stories per hour with CrumbScale. So it goes super fast. So when you're in Excel, you can move stories really fast. If you have a huge backlog, you know, if you have to move 400 post-its on the wall, it's going to take forever. So do it in Excel, you're going to see it goes really fast. So what does it look like? So if you're in Excel, you would have basically you would have like say your backlog would be at the bottom, and you leave some space at the top. Okay. So the first step, you have all your stories here. Okay. So the first step is going to be to move all those stories in the top backlog, and we want to order them by size. Okay, so the biggest one's going to get the top, and the smallest one at the bottom. Okay. So what do we do? What do we do? We're going to do something very simple. It's an insert sort, which is like, if there's any developers here, you know what that is. It's basically you ask yourself a question as you insert something in the list. Is it bigger than that one? And then if the answer is yes, you just jump over it. So you take the first one, you know, and you insert it from the bottom of the list, and that's super important. insert from the bottom, and of course the first one goes straight to the top. There's nothing else there, so it goes straight to the top. The second one, you take it from there, insert it from the bottom, and as you go up, you ask yourself the question, is it bigger than that one? Okay, so if it's bigger, you just drop it on top. If it's smaller, you put it underneath. Okay, and you keep doing that one by one. You bring them in, and you insert them. You know, sometimes it's going to go up. Sometimes it's going to be dropped very, very like at the bottom. But it's basically that's the step. Okay, the trick here, or the trap here, is that we want to go faster, or we want to go faster than fast, because this is pretty fast, you know, if we want to do it. But sometimes people are trying to cheat. You're saying, oh, that one just, I call it teleporting, just put it right there next to that other one. And that's super bad, because when you do that, you're using one of your bias, okay? You're anchoring to something you already know. So it's always, the thing is to always insert from the bottom, and you go up step by step, and you get to the top or whatever, wherever it's going to drop. And as you're doing that, sometimes you're going to find errors. You correct them as you go. Okay, so you go and you insert everything in that. Okay, so the super important bit here, okay, is that at the end, what you're going to have here is a very smooth progression. You're not going to have steps like small, medium, X large, and things like that with big steps. It's going to be a smooth progression from small to the biggest one, okay? And that's a very, very important feature of the CrumbScale, okay? So if you're done with that, then you're done with step one, okay? So you're good. Everybody's happy, okay? So step two, what we're going to need is we're going to need the famous Fibonacci point scale estimation thing. So how does it work? I'm going to write it here. So I start with 1/2. 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, whoops, 20, 40, and 100. So I do use the 100 still, okay? I do not use the 0. In CrumbScale, you never put work that is completed or work that is worth nothing in the scale, okay? So what do we do? And this is where the crumb word, crumbs, come from, is that we're going to start with the 1/2, okay? So we start at the bottom of this list here, okay? So we create a column in Excel on the side, and that's the points, okay? And for each things at the bottom, if you find stuff, and most backlog will do that, at the bottom of your backlog, you're going to have things that, you know, just talking about it is annoying because it's so small, okay? And I call them crumbs, okay? A crumbs is something I give you, I say, hey, can you do that? And you don't even think twice, you say yes, and it's not going to impact your schedule of the day at all, okay? It's done, okay? So as long as you have things like that, you give them 1/2, okay? As soon as you get something you're like, I'm not sure, that one I would have to think about that. It might take more than, you know, just a fraction of a second, or it's not just like sending an email, something like that. It has density, it's something. So as soon as you do that, you move up to the next one, which is 1, okay? And you know, you probably guessed it by now. The idea is that you move up the scale like that, and you ask yourself the question, is the next one above twice as big, you know, as the one that I'm looking at right now? So, and the steps between each things here is the golden ratio, you know, so if you want to look that up on the internet, so it's 1.62 something, but let's say that it's 2, because we're very good as human to say, well, it's about the same size, well, or it's about twice as big, okay? So we want to ask that question, is the next one above twice as big? Or if it's not twice as big, then it's going to be the same size, okay? So we do that. So there's 1 and 1, and at one point we're going to say, well, you know what, I feel like that one is a 2. So we increment, we go to the next one, okay? And we keep doing that, and we go up our scale, okay? So as you do that, you'll notice that sometimes you're going to have large blocks with the same number, okay? So let's say I have a whole bunch of 5s. So at one point, you can get trapped in like an infinite loop of like small increments. So sometimes when you have a large block with the same number, what you want to do is you want to not just say, is the next one double the size, but you want to kind of look way down. Like let's say you have a whole bunch of 5s, you want to look at like the first 2 5s. Are those like, you know, twice as small as the next one, you know? Like, so you want to make sure that you kind of check all of the 5s against the next one, you know, just the last one. And that's going to prevent like a slow creep of small increment, and then everything's a 5, okay? So you ask that, and then you do that, and at one point you're at the top, and it could finish with whatever, 40s or 20s or whatever. And at that point, you are done, okay? And when I say you're done, you are done with estimating for the rest of your project, okay? It's that serious. There's no re-estimation, okay? And magically, this thing here, which is your Excel spreadsheet, you keep that thing, okay? You make a printout of that. This is your Superman powerful tool for estimating in 30 seconds. I'm going to explain that in a second. The results, I mean, you have your points, so what do you do with those? You just throw them into, like, you have Jira, you have TFS, whatever your system is to track your backlog. Use those points, okay? But that thing now is your tool, okay? So what I normally do is I color code the points, you know, like green at the bottom because it's small and red at the top because it's big, you know? And what I do is I print it out, and I leave papers like that everywhere. And I print it out on paper because I do not want to change it. You do not re-estimate, you do not move that tool, it is your tool. So you're in the middle of a sprint, and the PO comes with a brand new story and says, how big is this thing? And normally you're like, I don't know, and you haven't estimated things in a long time, or, you know, it's complicated. With CrumbScale, you go back to your tool, so it's, you know, a piece of paper or whatever. You look at whatever that is. You ask a few questions. The idea is to know what type of work it is. Okay, you don't want to know how big it is. You just want to know what type of work it is. Okay, and then you look from the bottom up. You look for similar work in your CrumbScale. So you look, you know, like, okay, let's say this is like a few web pages, and it touches the database stuff, you know. So you're looking at web pages in the database, that's this, and it's all a bunch of like 5s in that area. It's 5. That's it. 30 seconds. Okay. It is ridiculously fast to estimate new stories. Okay. So that's pretty much CrumbScale in a nutshell. Okay. Coming back to the initial points. Confusion about points versus hours. I never talked about hours. Never. Okay? It's just points. And so that's a super important thing. There's no reference stories. There's nothing like that. Okay? It remains precise over time. And why? Because you never change your original estimate tool. It stays the same throughout the whole project. It does not move. What changes is your velocity from sprint to sprint. Okay? There's no re-estimation. We use that, we leave it like that, and everything else is estimated with that. And once they're estimated, you keep the estimation. The only reason for re-estimating anything in the backlog is if the definition of the story changed. And not your skills as a developer, like I'm better at coding in that thing, or I know the system better now. No, if the need, if the requirement changed, then you can re-estimate. Other than that, don't touch the estimation. And the second thing, the second, like I'm at 4 or 5. The last thing is fast. It's super fast. Okay, it's ridiculously fast. Once you start using CrumbScale, you'll see that you can estimate large backlogs. I invented that while I was in the video game business, and we had backlogs of like 300, 400 items at the beginning of the project, and we could estimate the whole thing in half a day. Okay. So it's really fast, and then because it's you get a tool at the end, it's even faster to estimate new stories. Okay, I'm gonna finish on an expert trick. Okay, so if you have very large backlog, let's say you have a 400 item backlog, 300 item backlog. Doing those two steps for 300, 400 things can be a bit, even though it's fast, it still takes time, okay? So the minimum items, the minimum number of items to create a good CrumbScale is about between 40 and 60, okay? So let's take an even 50, okay? You go in your ginormous backlog, you take like all the senior programmers, the experts, and you say, take a sample of 50 stories that represent the whole 300, okay? So you take your time, pick 50 that represents the small, the medium, the large. It represents each type of work, you know, so if there's database stuff, there's middleware, BI stuff, whatever there is, you want to represent the backlog with that selection, okay? So once you have that, you do CrumbScale with the 50. Okay, so it goes really fast because you only have 50. You do step 1, you order them by size. You do step 2, you put all the points. And then you use that tool to like really quickly estimate the rest of the backlog. So you have like you have like 250 some items left. You estimate it with the tool. And this is how people get to 100 items per hour estimation time. So this was CrumbScale in a nutshell. And I hope that you're going to start using that estimation method, because it changed the lives of many developers around me, and I hope it can help you too.